When was the last time that you experienced this feeling of one more turn? Just one more turn. One more turn and I've got it. One more turn and I will stop and I will go eat dinner and I will go do whatever it is that I need to do. I'll go fold my laundry, whatever. Just one more goal, one more little thing to complete. Oh, let me just finish this one line of code. Oh, I'm just working on this one little issue and it'll be solved in no time. Give me 5 more minutes and I will fix my code. It'll be bug free. This bug will be solved and then I'll be able to leave and be satisfied with it. And then you finish fixing that problem and then you go, oh, wait, it's not quite fixed. It's connected to this other issue. Let me just fix this other issue a little bit. Okay, now it's, oh, wait, nope, there's another issue connected to it. Oh, wait, no. Oh, there's still this thing and that thing and the other. And then before you know it, it's 9 p.m. and you said 5 more minutes 3.5 hours ago and you haven't eaten dinner yet, right? Sometimes this happens to us in programming and sometimes this happens to us in video games. And I have recently been playing Satisfactory. I've also recently been doing a giant refactor in my current project, and I can't help but notice how incredibly similar these feelings and processes are. So that's what we're talking about today. I am Chris, and this is Game, Develop, Repeat. In my mind, Satisfactory is an efficiency simulator and sort of a base building sandbox. So, what you do in this game, for anybody who's not familiar with it, is you mine resources and turn them into things. Now, that process becomes very complicated very quickly because you are taking something from a chunk of ore, you're smelting that, and then you are taking the thing you smelted and then building it into something, and then you start assembling those parts into other things. And you're doing this all through a series of conveyor belts and buildings, and you have to power everything, and you have to harvest fuel for powering everything. It is similar to Factorio in a lot of ways, but it has a very different feeling from Factorio. So don't rule it out just because Factorio wasn't quite for you if it wasn't for you, but it does scratch some of the same itches. Now, I've only put 4.5 hours into this game so far, partially because it feels so much like programming that it's hard for me to play after a day of programming. Right, after I've been working on my game development, after I've been working on my project for however long, I go, I want to play Satisfactory, but I don't think I can. It's using all the same parts of my brain, and it's just a little bit too much sometimes. But it is like an efficiency chasing game for me. I want to make sure that every one of these machines is giving the appropriate amount of materials to other machines, and then they are pumping out those materials at an appropriate pace, and so on and so on. And there are goals in this game, unlocking things, unlocking new materials, connecting with new things, and building out your base and exploring the world a bit. There's all these goals that you can choose. But for some reason, for me, the most compelling thing is just, is this number at 100%? Is this efficiency number at 100%? Why is it at 99? What's going on there? It's that sort of a thing where I'm like, how do I get these? How do I get these conveyor belts to all run smoothly? I need everything to run smoothly. And in service of that goal, I am destroying the planet. I am running around this planet and I am picking up all the leaves that I can because, hey, they're just leaves. I can just pick up leaves. That's fine. That doesn't matter. And then before you know it, I'm going, hey, I'm going to chop down some trees. They're just trees. It's fine. I'll just chop down trees. And then I'm building out this giant metal foundation because I need a nice level playing field for my factory. I need everything to be consistent and easy to manage. Is it that important for my efficiency that the floor be so stable and consistent and all have a metal foundation? Probably not, but doesn't it just make things just a little bit easier? Just a little bit more efficient. Isn't that what we want? We just want it to be just a little bit more efficient. So let's just build out this giant metal floor. Sure, I'm wasting a ton of resources for it, but it's going to make things more efficient. And I I feel like the end state of this game is probably just destruction. I wouldn't know, but it seems like I am just going to destroy this planet in the service of productivity. And I'm not even sure what the reason for the productivity is. I just want to make things. And then there's this incredible aesthetic going on in this game too. There's like this corporate mastermind kind of thing in the background that's like treats you as company property. There's beautiful voiceover that's really well edited, like really good audio editing on the voiceover to make it sound just right. And good voice acting too. Fantastic. Absolutely love the voiceover in this game, which is rare for me, by the way. It is rare for me to go, man, I love the voiceover in this. That is not a bit of praise that I throw out there casually. Um, it's nice. It's really nice. The whole aesthetic is like corpo satire, strange, like it feels like the tiniest bit surreal, and it's delightful. Now, a big part of the aesthetic is the gameplay, the feeling of the gameplay. This single-minded project that you are chasing creates a feeling of, I don't know, employment in a very specific way. You're like driven to this goal that you don't even fully understand, but you just know that you have to do it. And you're like, well, I better do it the best I possibly can. There's something about this that maybe doesn't make it sound as appealing as it is, but it's deeply appealing. There's something about this project that you're undertaking where you're like, well, I got to get there, and I got to get there as fast as I can. Let's just keep going. And it leans into the aesthetic in a really fun way that's very satisfying. It is hard to put into words exactly the impact that everything has when it's all summed together. I think the best way to understand it is to just play the game, but it is overwhelming but manageable. It's smooth. It's a series of interconnected goals. It's incredible. And it feels like programming a game when it goes really well. It feels like working on a project that you're passionate about when the project is going really well. And then at its worst, it feels like the moments where you go, "Oh god, I have to restart everything. I have to just oh my god, should I just delete everything? Okay, well, what can I salvage from this?" Which is also the best part of the game too. Like even the worst parts are amazing. There are elements of this game that are like, "Oh man, I really don't like where that is. All right, let me just move everything. Let me rotate everything. Let me just do a whole rebuild." But then you finish the rebuild and you're like, there you go. And you get to see how it looks. And somehow they manage the series of goals in a way that is just so good. That is the single most impressive point of this game. The way that they manage all the interconnected goals. The way I say that, the graphics are crazy, the voiceover is crazy, everything is crazy in this game. But to me, the most impressive thing, the most mind-blowing bit is the fact that the goals are always politely nudging you somewhere else in a compelling way. It's not like you must do this thing next. It's like, oh, here's a bunch of things that you can do. Don't you want to do that? You're already halfway there anyway. They've got it so you're like, oh, you have just enough resources to get started on this one. Why don't you get started on this one? Every single thing in the game is like that. Everything in the game is like, oh, you might as well get started on this. Why not? You might as well explore this. You might as well explore this. You got so many options. Why not? You're already kind of down this road. Why not go a little further? And I think that there's so much value in understanding whatever it is that they are doing, whatever lever they're pulling that makes you feel like, I'll just do a little more. That is a valuable tool. That is a fascinating and interesting little lever of my psychology that they are pulling that makes me go, I'll just go a little further. I'll just you know what? Just one more turn, just one more goal. Let me just build this one more thing, and then we'll stop. So how does this relate to game development? This in my mind, this is game development at its best. This is any huge project that you're working on when you're in the most flowy, enjoyable parts of that project. It is all about these interconnected goals. It is about you finish this one thing and it's connected to this other thing, and then you start working on that, and then that's connected to this other thing, and you keep going and you keep going and you keep going. And you're single-minded about it, and you're enjoying it, and you're just enjoying the work and seeing the results of the work and ignoring the end game of the whole thing, right? Like, I'm playing Satisfactory. I'm not thinking about what happens 40 hours from now in the playthrough. The moment I start thinking about that, that's like, oh no, I don't know if I want to work towards that. Like, my somebody I was talking to was like, oh, this person has trains now in their game. And then I was like, man, how am I ever going to get to trains? That seems crazy. I was like, you know what? Let's not worry about that right now. Let's not think about the end goal of this factory. Let's just focus on optimizing this little bit of iron that I'm dealing with right now. Let's just focus on how to get this copper to a more convenient location. How can I put all of my, actually, that's something I should work on. Can I put all of my fuel generation stuff in one place? Can I create like a central power grid? Because that would be really nice, because then I can evenly distribute all the biofuel, all the biomass that I get in the game. If I can just put all of my power generation in one little like district. See, now I want to play this game. Now I want to go, you know what? I'll pause the podcast. I'm going to go play Satisfactory. No. I'll keep recording. I'll finish this. I'll finish this thought. This joy in optimizing these things is the same joy that I get in programming. When I'm working through something and I learn about a new tool from like my Twitch chat, and somebody goes, oh, why don't you use this? When somebody was like, hey, why aren't you using resources for this? And then explained how resources work to me. This is shout outs to both Lethal Injection and Send It Software. Sorry, Lethal Injection Games, who's a viewer of this, and Send It Software, who was hanging out in the Twitch chat and gave me huge tips. Those are things that change the whole game for me, right? The whole game of programming. Somebody goes, oh, you should be using resources. And then here's a plugin for resources. And here's a video for learning all about resources. And then I go, oh, let me try that. And now I have this incredible spreadsheet in Godot that is just helping me manage all the types of fish in the game that I'm developing. And I'm like, this is now manageable. Oh my God, this is incredible. I was going to have just a giant JSON file with tons of text, and it was going to take me forever and be an absolute nightmare. And now it's beautiful because I tried this new tool. And then I keep going from one thing to another, because then I just want to keep exploring and figuring out new things and making it more efficient. That is Satisfactory. That feels the same. It has the same feeling. And you reach these points in both things, in both game development and in this game, where you go, God, I got to do a full change of everything. I got to reset everything so that later I can work more efficiently. And part of the balancing act of this is this feeling of, how do I get as far as I can before I have to refactor everything? Do you know what I'm talking about? Maybe you've had this feeling, maybe you haven't, but I have this thing when I'm coding and when I'm playing this game too, where I go, how far can I go before it's a problem? You know? Can I go the rest of this entire video game that I'm developing without ever having to refactor this? How much of a holdup is this? Is it fine? It doesn't need to be perfect? Can I just let this part of my code be an absolute mess? Is it actually affecting the efficiency of things? Is it actually affecting my ability to work on this? Every time I come back here and look at this chunk of code, is it impossible to navigate to the point where I just need to refactor it? Is it impossible? Is it horrific? Do I just have to fix the way that everything is interconnected? Is it worth the time? I don't know. There are things where I just go, yeah, that can just stay spaghetti. That can just stay spaghetti. And what's funny is that is the phrase that people use when talking about their horrific sets of conveyor belts in Satisfactory. They're like, oh, we've just got spaghetti going on with like their conveyor belts. I'm pretty sure. I think I saw that referenced in a video about a game. But it's so related. It's like exactly the same thing, right? We just make these horrific piles of code that are all interconnected. Then we go back and we try to organize it and we go, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. We don't need to worry about that. And then you go try to make any changes to it, and you're like, oh, why is nothing working correctly? Everything fell apart. Okay, I guess I need to delete these and put this here and put that here. And like restructuring this stuff is see, I haven't gotten deep enough in Satisfactory to confidently say this, but just from the foundations that I've done so far, it feels like restructuring it is going to be the same nightmare / extremely satisfying experience as restructuring a code base. It seems right. And I have been doing some restructuring on my code base. I have just ripped a bunch of stats out of the game. I deleted probably dozens of lines of code, if not over 100 lines of code. I deleted all of the experience value types in my game. I had like this whole system where I had different experience types so you could level a variety of skills. And I just went, yeah, actually, that doesn't belong in the game. And actually, the player doesn't need health. We don't need health for the player. It's a fishing game. The health is whether or not you catch the fish. That's all it is. You don't die. It's fine. I changed what like a fail state is. I changed the way that the whole visuals work. Like all the visuals are going to look different than I had thought. The whole art aesthetic for the game is changing. And all of this started just because I went, okay, let's start drafting what the fish are going to look like for this fishing game. I just went, okay, let's start drafting the visuals for these fish. What are these fish going to look like? And as soon as I started drawing what the fish look like, I went, oh, wait. Okay, I need to pick a good color palette. And I looked at color palettes. And I went, oh, okay. I kind of want this color palette. And then I want this other color palette too. And then I drew a visual for what I wanted these color palettes to be used like. And I went, oh, I have to restructure everything. Because the vision I have for the game is actually way different than I thought it was. And it was a quick refactor, right? It took like 2 days, but it was one of those things where I looked at what I had made, or in the Satisfactory terms, I looked at my factory and I went, oh, everything is on the wrong side. Everything is on the right now and it needs to be on the left. So we just need to move everything over to the other side of this thing, right? It's just like, oh, everything is not quite where it needs to be. Let me just take 2 days to flip it. I can leave it basically the same. Or maybe more accurately, I just pulled out an entire production line of the factory. It was like, oh, you never need to use iron again. And I was like, oh, okay, let me just get rid of all of the iron really quickly. Is that sort of a thing? And then you go, oh, wait, this is a lot of stuff is embedded with this and like in between it. And I got to make sure to delete the right thing and follow the strand perfectly and blah, 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 blah. And it was so satisfying when I finished it. Oh, it felt so good. It was so nice. In the same way that getting something to 100% efficiency while running Satisfactory feels nice. It's like, oh, there it is. We got it going. We got it going correctly. This is beautiful. So at its best, coding feels like Satisfactory at its best. Not just coding, but game design, game development at large. In fact, here's something interesting. The most significant refactoring that I did all came as a result of just sitting down with a piece of paper and drawing what I want the game to look like a little bit. Not like drawing in a good way, drawing in a stick figure way. And then I went, oh, wait, now I need to change this, 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 and this. And then it became so clear, so crystal clear exactly what I wanted the game to look like. And that is, right after that, you get to do the best part of making a game. Oddly enough, and the worst part. You get to do the part where you pull away all of this stuff that you don't need. You just delete a bunch of stuff. And then you get to rebuild it with a much clearer vision. You go, oh, this is how I want to use this. Oh, now I've learned how to use all these things. I've learned what I'm actually trying to make here. I understand my goals. I have clarity on it. So now I can fix my old mistakes and just make it so cool and make it so much more interesting than it was ever going to be. At its best, game development feels like Satisfactory. And at its worst, game development also feels like Satisfactory. But like the kind of fun refactoring, frustrating part, right? Like if you can view the really frustrating phases of game development as just the part where you're kind of deleting so that you can make things cleaner, it's more satisfying, you know? And it is deeply satisfying to work on a project like this, like a huge development project. Don't get too overwhelmed by it. Don't don't worry about it. It's just like playing a video game. You just start at step 1, you move to step 2, you move to step 3, you move to step 4. It's fine. It is not. You don't have to worry about the end game. You don't have to worry about the late game. Don't take the potion that gets you to level 60 or 80 or whatever and makes you go straight into late game content. Don't do that. Just start at the beginning. Take your time. It's going to be a long project and you're going to enjoy every step of the way. Don't rush it. If you're rushing it in that way, if you're like, oh, I just got to get to level 60 or level 80, don't do that. That's not going to be a good time, man. If it's your first project, it's going to be overwhelming in the way that's not fun. You want it to be overwhelming in the way where every step, it's like, oh, I have so many possibilities, and which one do I explore? I'm going to explore this one. Let's explore this. I'm overwhelmed by the ways that this is connected to other things. This is connected to so many cool ideas, so many cool things that I can explore, and I'm just overwhelmed by the number of amazing things that I can look into. The bad side of that is I'm overwhelmed by the end goal. You don't want to be overwhelmed by the end goal. That's not motivating. Being overwhelmed by the number of possibilities is a little bit motivating. It can also be too much. So maybe pull that back sometimes too. Here's a weird connection. This will be the final bit that I mention on the relation between Satisfactory and programming. You don't necessarily need to make things more efficient. Sometimes it is inefficient to make something more efficient. If something's at 90% and you want to get it to 100, is that the best use of your time, or should you be working on something that is at 0% and getting that up to 50%? You know? If you already have all of the iron ingots that you need, do you really need to make the production of iron ingots more efficient? Now, this is not a one-to-one comparison, but there are things in my programming where I go, oh, I really need to clean this up so it's easier to work with. How often am I going to be working with that? Is this a bit of the code that can be messy and not really affect other stuff? No, that's always dangerous. When we go, oh, this won't affect anything later, inevitably, that's the stuff we run into later and go, oh, this will affect things later. But you can make a reasonable guess sometimes, and maybe occasionally you'll be wrong, but you might be saving time 9 out of 10 times. Who knows? The point is, figuring out that judgment call is tricky, but it's important. You don't want to spend 10 hours getting like a little bump in optimization on a thing that you may not even need to touch, when you could spend those 10 hours making the game better for your players, right? You could spend those 10 hours making the project so much better, but instead you're making it 1% more comfortable for you to work on. You need the game to be comfortable for you to work on, sure, but how much of a payoff are you really getting for each one of these little micro optimizations? If something is driving you crazy, fix it. But if something is just like a tiny little, like, it's a little bit annoying, but it's fine, and I almost never touch this part of the code, I don't know, man. Maybe just ignore it. Oh, man. Chris's advice for programming. You have a problem? Maybe just ignore it. Maybe that's fine. Maybe you don't need to fix the problem. But then again, maybe you do. So keep that in mind. Two questions for this week. First one, how can you make your development feel more like satisfactory? How can you lean in to the enjoyable elements of the development and make the refactors feel a little more rewarding? For me, a big thing I've been doing this week is taking notes of the things that I've accomplished. Literally just writing down like, oh, here's what I did. Here's what I got done. That way I have like a little checkpoint where I go, ooh, I did finish a little part of this refactor. Ooh, I did, I get that little boost. I get that little something that makes me go, oh, nice. And I enjoy it a little bit more that time. But what would work for you? What would make it just a little bit more satisfying? And next question is, what efficient things are actually traps for you? What efficiency traps do you fall into? Things where you go, oh, I've got to make this better. I've got to improve this. I've got to fix this. You know what? I got to restart the factory from start. I gotta go all the way back to the beginning because of this one little problem that's losing me 10% efficiency. What kind of things do you fall into with that? I think I actually fall into not cleaning up things that need cleaned up. I think I definitely fall into the trap of like, it's fine. And then I work with something that's just an absolute disaster for way too long. And if I had fixed it, 5 to 10 hours ago, actually, it's more like days or weeks ago, then I would have saved a ton of time. But then when I learned the lesson, this is my cope for this. This is my justification. Once I learn the lesson, it has such an emotional impact that I never forget the lesson. And then I internalize it really well. So I must be doing something good, right? It's a good thing that I've made myself suffer by doing the thing incorrectly for that long. Because then once I learn how to do it correctly, I never forget. And then I do it correctly from then on out. Right? It never forms a bad habit. It just fixes automatically and becomes permanently better. Anyway, what's your version of that? What's your efficiency trap? That is everything for the week. We have got the Discord if you want to hang out. We've got the Twitch, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2 p.m. Eastern. And there's a YouTube, too. I've started doing YouTube shorts a little bit. We'll see if I keep doing them. I don't know. I think I probably will. I just want to make sure that they're like genuinely useful and not just like generic YouTube shorts stuff. But we're doing that too now. That's everything. I will see you in the next one. Thanks for hanging out. Good to have you here. That's that. Have a good week. Get out there, make some stuff, and have fun with it. Bye-bye.